Hi.
Short Bus Debate Club. It's a bus rolling.
I can get on board. Hello, I'm Darren Jolly.
It's time to get this short bus started. So let's roll and on with the show. Hey everybody, this is Brian Courtney with Short Bus Debate Club. I hope you guys have your fucking transfers or bus fare because we're ready to ride. This is part 2 of, I don't know what the fuck you want to call it. No such thing as a wasted vote, which is where we're covering the third party stuff. Darren Jolly is here.
Are you sure? That was not your best.
Not my
across
best.
the table from me, I've got, as usual, I'm not Walter Cronkite.
Well, I just, the reason I changed it is because you just sat down. That's why I said Darren Jolly is here. Anyway, whatever. So now we're going to kind of break down the individual party platforms and interviews and talk about, what we thought was horse shit, what we thought was true, what we thought was just somebody giving an answer that they didn't know the answer to, which I guess could be categorized as bullshit, and the like. So you took a lot more notes than I did.
Yeah, but we were all talking. We were all talking. I mean, I always take notes. I lost half of my sheets of paper. I don't know where the fuck they went. That was what I was looking for. But having said that, there were several things that occurred that were like over and over and over again, right? Like one thing for sure was on these conservative spaces where, and this is like, so what would apply in this instance would be the Constitution Party, the Independent American Party. There's another one that I can't think of right now. But either way, there was a lot of like on the right, more right side, like a weird kind of reverence for the Constitution. And there were a lot of instances where, a few instances, I should say, not a lot, where these individuals would be relating the creation of the Constitution almost like it's the fucking word of God.
The Constitution Party did that for sure.
Yeah. And
like he actually said that there were people in the party that said that it is, considered a religious document.
But he said that he didn't though, right?
Right.
As an individual. That was that Jim guy, right?
Yeah.
But
no, you're thinking of Jim Rex.
he's the Reform Party. That's right.
Jack Turin was the Constitution
Party.
guy.
Okay. Excuse me. So Jack said that, but the way that Lonnie said it, and of course, if you listen to the show, there's kind of a funny moment that goes on where he tries to decenter the religious overtones away from Christianity, right? And he's like, I don't care how you think about your religion and this and that and blah, 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 blah. And he said, but, when it comes from our Lord and our Savior, and I was like, Lonnie, I'm pretty sure when you say our Lord and our Savior, that's Christianity. He says, well, you can put what labels you want to put on me. I'm sorry, Lonnie. I just got to pick at that one just for a moment, a little bit.
Right.
If you refer to your Lord and your Savior, and that's, own it, I don't give a fuck. And I appreciate, so you can in one moment have your emotional connection to God in however you want to have that, and have the Christianity thing too. Like you can say that there's all these other things that are in the way, but you can't say our Lord and our Savior and then accuse me of pigeonholing you.
No, it's similar to like if I said something like, our dark Lord Satan, hail to thee, then somebody said, oh, well, you worship the devil. Well, you can put whatever label on me that you want, but Well, no, you said our Lord Satan.
No, you did not say. You did not say our Lord Satan. You said our Dark Lord Satan.
Yeah.
Our evil Lord, what do you say? Satan.
So, yeah, I'm a Bill of Rights guy. I'm a Constitution guy. And that's where, like, a lot of the Constitution Party, the Reform Party, not so much the American Patriots guys, just because, Lonnie talked about God a lot, which is fine. I don't care if you love God, if you believe in God, any of that stuff. That's fine. It just shouldn't be in politics. It shouldn't have anything to do with you writing laws that directly affect the populace, especially when the populace may or may not believe in the God that you do. Because I'm sure people would be fucking flat pissed off if I started writing laws based on our Dark Lord Satan. But maybe not. I mean, the libertarians might buy into that.
No, because like you said, they at least lately they've been veering towards
Yeah,
our Lord and Savior.
yeah. But that's kind of the problem that I had because, like I said, Jack said that a lot of the Constitution Party, like they thought of both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution as a religious document. It's not. I mean, our forefathers specifically separated that out, or at least made an attempt to.
And I asked Lonnie directly. I said, you said you talked about the Bill of Rights. I said, what's the first line in the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights? It's the Establishment Clause. It's the separation of church and state. I mean, that's and there's several quotes throughout, and nobody's gonna deny the fact that a lot of these guys were white, landowning, wealthy Christians. Like this is not something that's up for debate. But having said that,
not a lot of them, all of them.
Yeah. I was just trying to be lukewarm a little bit.
Okay.
I was being a politician, so.
But I think many of them may have been white.
But they
may have owned land
because of the power of the Anglican Church and the historical power of Rome and all that. I mean, they made choices, and they made those choices for a reason. And obviously, one of the tough things about making a choice like that is that to say it in the abstract is different than playing it out, right? So for years, like you pointed out earlier, where you have these pockets in the U.S. still that are really horrible to, like they're rooted in that, like the Protestant church space, and Catholics do not exist inside of that space. That's weird. I didn't even know that when you said that. That's a weird thing. But my response to you was when I was making fun of, when the Irish immigrants were coming here and all the ones that didn't have jobs during the American War, a ton of them went and joined the fucking military, and they had to do fucking horrible, shitty work. And so much so that the Mexicans were fucking smart. They leafleted the other side of the border and said, all you Irish Catholics who are getting your asses handed to you, and Mexico, I assume at that point in time, as it has been, it was very Catholic, when they were reaching out to them, they said, well, you come and help us in the war, we'll give you property and, and ownership of that land. You just got to come down here and fight the war. And that was where the San Patricio Corps emerged from in the first place. But it takes a while to work those kinds of things out. But it's really disheartening to see people become so narrow with regards to their interpretation of certain things. It's one thing to say that it was written by a bunch of white landowning Christians, It's another thing to say that it's a doctrine from God, like another biblical chapter or some shit or book or something like that.
Well, and that was what was funny because I actually asked Jack that question because, his party is called the Constitution Party. So he kept making reference to the Bill of Rights, which again, big believer in the Bill of Rights. But he didn't cover any of the amendments that followed the Bill of Rights. So I'm like, are black people still going to be able to vote? How about women? Do you take the entire Constitution, or is it just the Bill of Rights?
Somebody actually said to us that they were really against the 14th and the 15th Amendment, weren't they? Didn't they? Maybe that was something I was listening to on YouTube from from the Constitution Party people.
Well, so the guy, a couple of them, so Jack specifically said, well, that's part of the issue with the Constitution Party is that we believe some of these, are actual amendments that were ratified and all of that stuff.
He said that it was done. Those two were done illegally,
and some of them were not done appropriately, properly, whatever, legally. But he did clarify that he thinks black people and women should be able to vote. But
what a generous comment.
Again, you're not taking the entire Constitution as a whole. Like they should, if that's the case, then they should change the name to the fucking Bill of Rights Party. Because
like the 10,
right? Because then people would have more of an understanding of what it is.
Because if you call it the Constitution Party, it's the whole thing.
Yes.
It has to be and I remember we kind of went back and forth with him on a little bit because I said, well, I think I asked him something about elasticity, and it's like, well, that's part of the deal, but that's when he got into where I think it was the 15th and the 16th. It wasn't the 14th. It was the 15th and the 16th. I think that he said that.
I can't remember specifically which ones because I was like, because he was the one that said he wanted to get rid of the Federal Reserve and go back to the gold standard. And I was like, dude, look, I'm with you on the gold standard thing. I want us to attach the dollar to something that is tangible, that's real. And he's like, yeah, but if we get rid of the Federal Reserve, then it'll stop all of this manipulation and all of this illegal shit. And I was like, no, I mean, no, it won't. And just going to the gold standard won't stop that either because
there was crooked shit going on.
Yeah, I can fucking buy a bunch of gold and put it in Fort Knox and wait until the value goes, or if I want to fucking, flood the market and devalue the dollar for one reason or another, then I'll release some gold. Well, I mean, you can always manipulate shit.
But even still, your currency positions would have to be rooted to a concrete space, though. I mean, I'm not just saying because you're using gold. If you have X amount of gold there, and you're only allowed to produce enough money to be backed up by that, then I mean, there's like you were kind of alluding to them. There's a reason why they went off of it in the first place. You needed some sort of flexible space, but or at least that's why it happened. Was there was a general belief that there needed to be, otherwise there would have been, 42,374,963,000,000. And let's see, then inflation. So the value of gold went up that much, so we can increase the money supply that much. That's because but that's just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, but I mean, I still think it should be tied to something tangible. But by saying that it shouldn't,
let me know how that works out for you.
That it can't be manipulated because it's tied to something tangible is just completely false.
Why do you need to tie it to something? When you say tangible, is it you mean like the dollar, the pound sterling? I mean, what do you?
Well, okay, so like right now, the dollar is worth whatever it is someone says it is because of supply and demand, right?
Relative to other currencies, and yes. all of the various different inputs that come into creating the concept of value.
Right. So it can be, well, it doesn't matter. All I was trying to point out to him is that it can be manipulated either way.
It was a false assumption. Yeah, his assumption was incorrect.
Yeah. But a lot of these guys on the right, and I just said it again. God damn it! See, they've fucking brainwashed me so much.
We need to start
that even though I've been saying for several months now, we're not left, we're not right, we're just people. I just said it again. So the guys from the Reform Party who had a tendency to lean in a more conservative fashion.
You mean to the right?
They were my favorite righties of the bunch because they were fun to talk to. Now that could have been because they were our last interview, so we had gotten some under our belt, and we were, or no, I guess it was the Alliance Party that was our last.
That was our last one.
So maybe no, because Jim was from Alliance. Can't remember who the fuck was from. Jack was from Reform. So who the fuck was from Constitution? Anyway, doesn't matter. We can always go back and look later. But the last interview that we did, those two guys were probably, I had the most fun talking to those two. And that could have just been because I got used to doing the interviews. And so the
dude from the South, he's from South, was North Carolina or something? Where was he from?
Well, one was from North Carolina and one was from South Carolina.
The dude with the ginger with the fucking beard and he was ready to talk about anything and everything.
That was the Reform Party. Where it was North and South Carolina.
He was interesting though. He had a vision. I mean, he was into what he was into.
Yeah. And again, I don't care what you believe. If you believe that abortions are wrong, that's fine. We were just giving you a platform to talk about. Personally, I think that the government should stay the fuck out of our bedrooms, out of our doctors' offices, out of anywhere where we are. We should have that privacy to do what we want when we want, and then you should provide schools, roads, and infrastructure.
And Brian wants us to still have oversight. Some of those motherfuckers wanted no oversight. They wanted to scale the government down and put everything in the hands of the states. I don't know why they don't just have us break up into like 59 different countries at that point.
You know, when you said the states thing, it reminded me of something, because one of the things that every one of these parties complained about was ballot access.
Yeah, that was a huge, I mean, this is where the structure of the electoral system itself has to totally shift. Ballot access is a brutal fucking situation.
But the main reason the ballot access is a problem is because every Secretary of State in all 50 states decides who gets access to the ballot and what rules you need to follow in order to gain said access.
So when you're suggesting that when we have federal votes that there should be a federal structural mandate that's in place.
No, what I'm saying is that there's kind of a hypocrisy that they're saying everything should be decided by the state, and then they're like, fuck this, I can't even get voted in Colorado or California or whatever.
They're subject to the legal barriers that are constructed at the level of the state.
Right. So I would go even one step further and say that these people that are saying we want all of these state rights, small federal government, I think that they're full of shit, and I think that it's easy for them to say when they're on the stump, but when it affects them directly in a negative fashion, then they want federal. And I don't know that for a fact. I mean, nobody ever said that.
They didn't, but I mean, honestly, like, if it's a federal election, shouldn't access be streamlined? I mean, because right now what we end up seeing, that the kid Matt Ho from I think it was North Carolina, but he ran. I think he was a Green Party candidate in a senatorial seat in the South. And if you're like in places where Democrats have even a shot at winning in the South, you don't want any competition because it's so hard for you to get into a spot where, I mean, like the ones that won in Georgia, the last two were like so fucking close. It's just not very easy to become elected whether you're in the House of Representatives or in the Senate down there. So that Matt Ho guy, I'm sure that's what his name is. I'll double check here in a minute. Like he had to have 15,000 signatures stating that they wanted him to run for the Green Party in that senatorial seat during that election in 2022 or 2020, whatever one it was. And somehow or another, the Democrats got a copy of all the signatures, and they started calling all these people up and saying, "Are you sure that you wanted to sign
I
this?"
remember you talking to the Green Party people about
dude,
that.
it was one of the most fucked up things I'd ever. I listened to this whole huge thing about it. I don't remember if it was on Bad Faith or something else. I think it was on Status Quo. I can't remember, but or the Real News Network. Those are both really good places that I get some weird shit from too. But this one guy who was friends with him, with who had signed it, they're like, he's like, "Why are you calling me and asking me this? Who are you affiliated with? Are you an independent organization? What is it? Who is it you want?" And he just kept needling them and needling them and needling them, and they wouldn't admit it. But then they go to court over it, and it was the fucking people, the operatives from the Democratic Party that were trying to get him below the $15,000 fucking margin. And again, like your point about these state people, anti-federalists, James Madison, dick suckers, Sorry, guys, it's who I am. I don't know what to tell you. You're stuck with me. But I'm going to let you speak on the podcast and say whatever it is that's in your mind. But and you can use expletives at me too and say horrible things, and we'll probably just laugh. I think that's pretty much what Brian and I do anyway. But it does seem like the way that federal systems should function, or federal access to federal office, political activity, should be governed not at the state level. There might be some nuanced spaces where it would be, but dude, it leaves you in a space to where only the people that have access to money and lawyers and money and more lawyers and money and the people, the accounting people that can sit there and go through the process of doing this all. You and I could not, I like Frank and Blake, yeah. They're not rich, but they're not doing anything to try to be. They know they're not going to win. I mean, they're Frank and Blake. They're the approval party voting individuals. Approval voting is worth looking at. It's different than ranked choice voting, but it's another way of being able to vote for more than one person during a given election space. Like you say, you hate Joe Biden, so you'll vote for Trump and these other people, or the vice versa. You hate Trump, so you vote for Biden and all these other people to make sure that one way or another you don't get Trump in. But the point is that you can vote for multiple people in those spaces. They were basically suggesting that they were self-funding. They got a little bit of funding from other people that were around them, but it's because they're not taking any votes away from anybody. They're just making a point about the structure of the voting system.
Well, and they're doing a lot of outreach to other parties because they're trying to push the approval voting idea.
Uh-huh. But it's about an issue as opposed to.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. Like, okay, so I mean, if you're just talking about federal elections, then you're still talking about basically every 2 years that you've got a federal election, right?
Well,
because you got the midterms, and then you've got the
for the House. Senators are 6 years. House Representatives are 2, so they have to go every 2 years.
Right, so every 2 years between the president and the midterms.
What does that have to do? All I'm saying is there have to be rules.
Well, that's what I'm asking you, because so if you do it every 2 years and it's just federal, so would it be the Federal Election Commission that looked after only the federal things, and then the Secretary of States would do all of the state and local stuff.
That's a step in the right direction. I don't know if that's perfect, but I think that no matter what, federal elections should. It would be better to create two things would come out of that at least at the beginning. One is that you would have access to find in a very clear and consistent way for anybody that wanted to run for any office on a federal level writ large. And as a result, the transparency would be much more because right now, like there's like 1,700 different things that you have to fucking look at in some states. In other states, there's only 3. But you, like they said, ballot access, you have to go through the process. How much fucking money is it going to cost to get now? Whether it's RFK Jr. or any of them, the Constitution Party people, the ones that told us that they actually have. Some of them haven't got their candidates yet because they're still waiting to do their conventions. Yeah, but the ones that have done them already, all of their energy, instead of spending time thinking about the issues, thinking about, tangible things that we should be working on. We should not have to fucking spend all of our time using our energy on ballot access. At the state level, yeah, let states deal with that for, unless some unruly shit's happening. But you got circuit courts, you can deal with that kind of stuff. But if you set a good standard up here, you're going to create the better opportunity for things to. And because then we would have a real reason to love democracy, because it would be a little bit more like democracy, not like this stupid jackass fucking back-ass-word fucking thing that's going on right now.
Well, I can't remember which parties did complain, but a couple of the parties complained about the Federal Election Commission also.
I can't remember what they were.
It just had to do with, again, it was ballot access. Because they weren't a recognized party. So
because you have to get a certain percentage at a federal level before they give you. Yeah.
And you've got to get a certain level at these different states in order to be recognized at the federal level. So.
And you can't get the card ahead of you can't. The card it has to happen in that order. You can't get the card ahead of them.
Right. So one of the things I remember talking to different parties about when I was still doing people's propaganda, there were similar issues. I mean, these people were fighting really hard to get stuff done because, I mean, back then the Libertarian Party wasn't nearly as big because they had been splintered and they didn't have as much money because, 35% of them went back to the GOP. The Green Party was just barely fucking starting. The Constitution Party was what it was. The Reform Party was having the issues that it had because of fucking Buchanan.
Yeah. What an ass that guy was. That guy.
So
somebody should have popped a cap in that motherfucker's ass.
I don't know, because a lot of them were happy with certain states. Like certain states said, you know what, we only need. And this is an exaggeration, but I know that the figure of $1,000 was correct. So we only need $1,000 and a decent amount of signatures, but it wasn't like 150,000 or anything like that. It was just,
like
a few hundred
like
or
North Dakota
a few thousand.
They told us really easy.
Yeah. Unlike New York, where if you want to get on the ballot there, you need to win a seat here, and you need 275,000 signatures.
And you have to hop on a pogo stick with one foot down for 1,000 hops.
So I think maybe if instead of taking state rights away, and we did something along the lines of, and I don't know if this would work out in anybody's benefit or not, but if we took and did like a national convention of secretaries of state or secretaries of states.
You mean where they come together and they come up with them?
Yeah, something that's fair across the entire thing. Because the guys in large markets, New York and California, they're going to argue that they need more signatures and more money than somebody in North Dakota, right? And I don't know that this is what's going to happen, but this is what I can kind of see in my head. So that's why they make their rules as strict as they do to.
Because they fucking are gatekeepers, man.
Yeah, they are. But, well, and maybe California was a bad example because Gary Coleman ran for Congress.
The little guy?
Yeah.
What you talking about, Rose?
Or maybe it was for president. Because I remember one year on the ballot, there was a porn actress, Gary Coleman, and like 12 other people on there. And I can't remember what they were running
I'm
for.
almost certain that if that really is the truth, then somebody in California had to make a, you know, Gary Coleman takes the Pullman, you know, like they make some sort of stupid fucking porn thing about politics in California. I mean, that's like, you know, shaving Ryan's privates, things like that. And currently, right now, Brian is trying to figure out what
Sorry, it was governor.
He ran for governor
in 2003.
The little guy, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that he lived that long. I mean, he had bad kidneys. That's why he was so short, right?
Yeah.
He lived in Colorado most of his life.
No, not most of his life. He moved from California to Highlands Ranch when they built that Falcon Hills or whatever the fuck it was out there, and had him like custom design some bullshit train thing in his basement. And then I don't know. I think he lived there 4 or 5 years. People I knew like saw him at bars and stuff.
The only time I've ever been in that neighborhood, me and Dave and Nicole went and met with Rana and this guy, and it was like this est kind of thing. It wasn't est, but it was like that. They were trying to get us to pay $2,000 to go to a self-help thing, and Nicole and Dave just fucking rolled them over the coals. I imagine it was probably run by Gary Coleman.
So, in 2003, Gary Coleman ran with more than 130 candidates.
For governor, they had that many? Who's the porn actor?
It was for the recall election. I don't know, dude. I'm just, all I could get was a blurb because I'm not gonna subscribe to the LA Times.
Yeah, Patches O'Reilly or something like that. Ashes Jameson.
But that's a shitload of fucking people to run. So anyway,
I don't hate that idea. The one that you said where you would have a group of people come together from the states, so long as the intention is to create a formal, like the same process for everybody to be having access to be able to run, so that we know exactly what is necessary for then you can plan. You know, I mean, how do you even plan to run for president right now? I mean, it's a fucking nightmare. Like when we talked to those Reform Party people after what happened with Buchanan and some of the other stuff, like I listened to these things online. There were like fucking like lawsuits for like 6 years between 2012 and 2018 over who had the right to it and what was this and what was that. So like you're spending all your time and money on other things.
And they talked about the Federal Election Commission not allowing them to do really any meaningful fundraising because of the fact that money was missing. Well, I think they said $500,000 or something.
I think that they hinted at some numbers, but I think that they kind of said that they're not allowed to give concrete spaces.
Yeah, but they sort of slipped up a couple of times because he was like, that one guy punched one of the people in the kidneys, and
so you guys got to listen to these episodes. We got violence, we got porn stars, we got midgets. Oh, I don't think that's the preferred nomenclature, dude. We got Gary Coleman. I'm sorry, Peter Dinklage. I love you. I think you're like one of the best actors on the planet. Like I actually feel guilty now.
Really? And besides, I think if we were talking about words, he would be considered a dwarf and not a midget. Because the way that I always understood it is that a midget is proportionally correct all the way across. They don't have the like stubby fingers and stuff, and
They're,
large head.
they're like carnies, small hands.
But now I think they're just all in one big category, which is little people.
We represent the lollipop kids.
That's right. We are woke, all you little people out there.
I do love you, Peter Dinklage, though. I'm rewatching. You're about to wander around King's Landing and watch Daenerys do her best to take a knife from Jon Snow.
The Station Agent was an awesome movie.
That was another one that he was in? I don't think I've seen too much else. He did he was in one of the X-Men movies.
I think it was called The Station Agent.
Which X-Men movie was he in? The one where they're going back and forth in future, Days of Future Past or something like that.
Yeah,
I kind of like that one. So,
he wasn't he the guy in Elf that kicked the shit out of Will Ferrell?
I don't know, but that would probably.
He's like, I've got a house in Aspen, and he's going off. And he's like, oh, an elf. And he runs across the table. And
I've only ever seen the movie once. I don't watch stupid movies like that over and over again. Sorry, Will Ferrell and Peter Dinklage. I'm not going to make any money in those spaces.
Yeah, so I know we kind of got sidetracked there a little bit.
A little bit. A smidgen. It's all because of Gary Coleman, like, honestly. How do you have 160 motherfuckers running?
130.
130, excuse me. I'm sorry. I just naturally always add numbers on.
So and I think Gary Coleman made 131 because it said Gary Coleman and more than 130. So I don't quite understand the way they wrote that sentence, but that's what it said.
What you talking about, Liz?
Right.
We do need some reform, though, one way or another. And it needs to become easier. It needs to not be a situation where there's roadblocks. I mean, I think that we're at the verge of having our democracy fall on its face anyway.
So we did an entire episode on the FCC, unless I was dreaming that.
No, we did it.
Okay, I thought so. One of the things that I would like to see in the political process is, one, telling the FCC, fuck you, you don't belong in our houses. But two, quit allowing the affiliates, the news channels, whatever, to charge so much money for advertising. And two, if you're going to have a fucking debate, you need to let everybody on the debate. You can't say, oh no, it's just one Democrat and one Republican, or all the Republicans on this debate and all the Democrats on this debate. You've got to let everybody participate.
Yeah, you don't have the benchmarks where they have to have 50,000 donors and 50,000 unique donors.
Right.
And whatever else it is. There's one other thing that they always ask.
And I know that one of the arguments that someone is going to make is, well, if we just allow everyone to be on TV, then we're going to have people coming out of the woodwork saying that they want to be on the debate. Well, I think that there can be a vetting process, but it shouldn't be based on finances or what fucking party you're in.
You just have to demonstrate that you're a serious candidate. That's all. And serious candidate means that you've got some people that are endorsing you, that you're talking about things, that you've got a platform, that you...
Something, a website, letterhead.
It's going to have to be a little bit more than just a website and letterhead. I mean, there's got to be, because then we could just be in the same difficulty. And I know I started saying things that would put us, but that's why I said, as long as, if you have a platform, this is how I connect, and this is it, and blah, 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 and fuck you, motherfuckers. So what about a third party debate? That would be interesting.
I would be okay with that because honestly, last episode I said I've never been a straight ticket voter. That's a true statement. However, with that being said, I haven't voted Republican since 2000. Because I am that fucking disenchanted with them. I think that they do nothing but talk out of both sides of their mouth and never do one fucking thing. It might have been 2004, but it's somewhere in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I both 2000, 2004, I voted for Nader. Like local stuff, it depends. It just depends on who I know and what I know about him. So, um, one thing I was really surprised to learn though was that the Reform Party endorsed Nader in '04. I thought that was really, I mean, because this is a party that grew out of fucking ears. Uh, Ross Perot. I mean, Ross Perot is a fiscal conservative. You know, I mean, he's a libertarian for all intents and purposes. I mean, of some sort. He had some nuance in some of the stuff. He was critical of NAFTA, definitely. Which he was critical of NAFTA because he was concerned about labor getting fucked over. I mean, he was. I don't. I'm not gonna suck on Ear's dick, but I mean, I definitely think there were some unique things about him. But he was definitely way more. Ralph Nader was a lot further left than I would have ever thought anybody in the report. I'm sorry, he was a lot further on the socialist side of things. Socialist in the sense that the redistribution of goods is not going to fucking corporations. It's going to other people, to you regular people. Like Nader's more like that, but he suggested that he was honest and he was at least a person of character. Well, that was something the Reform Party was really about. Like the people they supported it was all about the character of the individual.
Out of, again, all of those parties, I think, and I'd have to go back and think about it some more, because again, you know, I am a Constitution guy, but that doesn't mean I'm going to vote Constitution
Does that mean
Party.
That you're a Bill of Rights guy or a Constitution guy?
So
that would be right. Does that mean Constitution?
Oh, I thought you were fucking with me.
I was fucking with you, but I was asking a serious question at the same time.
No, I told you a couple of different times in the last episode, I'm a Constitution guy. I want the whole fucking thing. Like, you can't just line item veto the shit you don't like and say, well, no, this is what our party's about. And when you say something like that, if you say you're the Constitution Party, it might be confusing to the voter because they might have a specific amendment in mind. What that one would be, I don't know.
Carry on with your perspective, bitch.
The Reform Party. Those guys, I thought, were... I don't know, like, I just had a different perspective after looking at the website and doing some research than when I actually talked to them. And so when I actually talked to them, I found out that out of all of the ones that we interviewed, I think I was probably closer to the Reform Party than any of the others.
Well, like one of the things, two of the things that I remember that he said, they had so many bad experiences because of the Buchanan stuff and because of all the lawsuits in between that they did not want to try to just plug and play. Like they wanted to take their time to make sure that the people that are there endorsing are people of character, people that that there's a value to. They're not just something for sale. And the other thing was that they said we don't immediately want to put somebody up for president right now. We're not at that stage of growth. Like when we talked about the short term, midterm, and long term, like they wanted to grow organically. I mean, it was very like that. The fact that it was for my position, they're going to be too conservative. But I definitely like the way that they were. It was about outcomes. It's not about now, you know, like escalating the level of conflict can be much easier if you have a strong ground to stand on. And they understood that. They're trying to develop that strong ground now, I think.
Well, but in the last episode, you described the American Solidarity Party as being very conservative with regard to like personal liberties and fiscally liberal. Well, I think that you could almost say that the Reform Party is the reverse of that.
Yeah, because they didn't want to tell you what to do.
Right. Right.
They were very freedom-ish. But I mean, even still, it was.
But they still said some interesting stuff like the economy thing and fixing homelessness
What do you say about the economy again? Remind me.
he was the one that said, if we fix the economy, then a lot of this other stuff will fall into line. There is a problem with poverty. There is a problem with homelessness. There are problems with
So on question
education.
2, that was why he was starting like that. If we deal with the economy first, then everything okay. Social Security gets dealt with. Yeah.
But a lot of
Education's gonna
people
benefit.
said something along those lines.
Was he who was the education guy? Where was he from?
That was the Alliance Party, and he was also from South Carolina.
Okay, that's right.
Well, no, but the one
he had run.
So one of the Reform Party guys was a teacher at a high school in South Carolina.
That's right. That was the
when you say the education guy, I just wanted to clarify.
The bearded dude. That was the one that had a. And dude, he was very. I didn't agree with barely anything he said, but he was very well thought out. Very well thought out. So, and enthusiastic about it, So
now, and to be fair, you guys, listeners, we did pre-mail these questions to all of these people, so they had time to prepare. So, we weren't, again, there were a couple of questions, including the follow-up questions, where we were hitting them off guard to some degree, but for the most part, they were all prepared, or should have been. But yeah, he was well spoken. If you're from the South.
Dang on, I'll tell you what. I'm sorry, guys. It just comes out sometimes. I like Blumauer. What do you what's the Fajili to say? He's Samoan.
We're chilly. But yeah, I mean, the Reform Party guys, I thought that, I don't know if, again, neither Darren nor I agreed with everything that any of them said. And Darren constantly brags about being a Marxist, so he probably agreed less.
What does that mean? I constantly brag about being a Marxist?
Just because, I mean, dude.
I just identify myself.
Oh, sorry, not bragging, just identifying because.
Can you hand me some tissues? I gotta wipe the blood off my fucking nose from that overhand right. I don't.
It wasn't meant to be an insult.
Are you fucking kidding me, you dumb fuck? All right. I always I think I'm a self-proclaimed genius and a Marxist. Okay. Rule number 1 in life: don't ever call yourself a genius. Let other people call you a genius.
Well, and if you are going to call yourself a genius, don't pass out backwards in the chair and start drooling on yourself.
Go on, get back, get your head back in the game, bitch.
So
we don't agree
again
with
the majority of the parties had a tendency to be more conservative, either socially or fiscally, with the exception of the Green Party, I think.
And the American Solidarity Party, depending on what questions you're asking.
Right.
And like the weird thing is, I found 2 different alliance parties. Like one of the alliance parties that I found online was super fucking, like super Marxy. Like, but this guy was not.
Now, the one thing that the Alliance Party guy said that I will agree with, and it was very similar to what I said in the last one, where you said it's no wonder people identify you being left, or if you're not careful, more people will. As he said, we call ourselves the Alliance Party because that's what we need as an alliance.
We're reaching out.
We need to work together.
Yeah,
and I completely agree with that.
And he had been the head of the education department in South Carolina. He was voted into that spot. He tried to run for governor, right, in 2010.
Well, he had a friend that ran for governor.
But he did too at
Did
some
he?
point. Yeah, it was governor or something. But he was of all the people we talked to, he had held the highest political office and had tons of background in the nightmare of electoral politics. So he's a curious person to listen to, because sometimes when we think about these things or listen to these things, it's good to talk to somebody. And he's run as both. I remember he said as a Republican and as a Democrat, depending on.
No, I think that's where maybe you and I are both confused.
No, it was him. It was the head of that Board of Education guy.
Right, but he said, I ran as a Democrat and won in a Republican state, and the only reason that I ran is because my friend who was a governor was Republican and talked me into running.
But that was during that one specific election. I'll find
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Well, either way, I think the point Darren was trying to make, and I could be wrong, but I think the point that he was trying to make is that he had been in a major party and decided, you know what, fuck this, I'm out of here. I'm going to create my own party, because these guys are not trying to do what is actually good for the people. And you, listeners, are people. So do what's good for you and those around you by maybe voting for someone other than a Demopublican or the corporate duopoly. I guess I'm going to keep talking because I think Darren is reading or something.
And that's all I got to say about that.
But yeah, I didn't mean to jump totally to the Alliance Party thing, but what I was going to say is I don't think it's fair, well, because we did have a lot of them that were more conservative. And I wish we could have given all of you a broader view into what's available out there.
When they did start to come together, because they were trying to reach out across, the point was that they were from both sides of the alleged aisle when they were talking with each other.
Well, yeah, because he ended up, the way that it was actually formed, because originally in South Carolina it was formed as the American People's Party.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then they needed to go into other states, but in order to get ballot access, they had to have a different name or something like that. So what they did is they started communicating with these other smaller parties and either merged or absorbed, or however you want to describe it, to make a larger party, and then they changed the name to the Alliance Party.
Yep. And they wanted to do there was one they wanted to do, but somebody else had that tied up already.
Yeah, so again, I don't think that we're done with this thing, and hopefully we can get somebody that is more, I don't know, fiscally liberal.
Yeah, I need one of you socialists or communists or one of you motherfuckers to come and talk on this. And don't just come on. We all ride on the short bus. I mean, listen to me talk. I can't fucking remember I'll start going in this direction, and then I'll get over there, and then I'll be all the way up there. I don't even know how the fuck I got there. So
now, even now that I just said that, the fiscally liberal thing, like, I know what it means to me, but I don't know what it actually means. Like, I'm for putting money into certain programs to help people better themselves. I'm into putting money into programs, especially for fucking education. Education is super important as far as I'm concerned. Now, by putting money into these programs where people can better themselves, I don't know if that makes me fiscally liberal or not. Like, does fiscally conservative just mean, we're cutting off the tap all the way across? No more water for any of you motherfuckers. I don't think that that's what it means, because if that's what it meant, then we wouldn't be spending as much money as we are. But again, I think that these lines, these definitions have a tendency to move depending on what's going on in the media and what they can spin to talk us into spending the money.
You're right. He ran as a Democrat. It was Jim Rex. And he was about his buddy that he was talking about. You're right. Your ass is the blackest.
Thank you, I guess. I don't know what that means.
I don't either. My grandma used to say it all the time. I'm sure somebody will accuse me of saying something I think is racist, because that's like the assumption. Like, people don't want to listen to what anybody has to say anymore. They just want to like look at them and correct them for something that they don't even know is
right, what that means.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but it sounded racist.
My grandma had a lot of good sayings, dude. You rattle on like the clatterbone of a goose's ass. I mean, what the fuck's a clatterbone? But you know what? Everybody knows what that means, because you can see a fucking picture in your head of a dog or duck walking, you know?
I think a clatterbone is like a corn flap. I think.
I think that the clatterbone actually covers the corn flap, but it's in the same general vicinity. This is starting to degenerate right now.
So, not very many of the parties put the environment as their top priority.
The ones that did tended to think about it more in the context of like economy, environment. It was like all part of the same.
Well, and they all bragged that the environment was important. For example, the Reform Party guy said, no, we need the environment. I mean, these are natural resources, and without them, we're going to die. Well, we're going to die with them. Probably.
Somebody used the word stewardship, I think, at one point, and I like that, you know.
I think that was the guy from the Alliance Party, but I could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, I think Jack from the Constitution Party identified himself as an environmentalist.
Yeah, he said like that was how he started out all the way.
But then put the environment clear down at the bottom. And I understand that we cannot actually take care of these things one at a time, but you know, there are things that are important to one or another.
You're going to prioritize certain things. Yeah.
The only party that did put the environment number one was the Green Party.
Surprisingly enough.
And a lot of their solution wasn't just the new Green Deal. You know, for instance, they said, well, we're going to get rid of the entire Marine Corps. Okay. Why? Well, because Marines murdered all these people and did all of this stuff. So we're not going to send the budget to them anymore. Okay. They're just going to be absorbed into the Navy. Well, then you're still going to be paying for those personnel. And if they're fucking psychos as Marines, they're going to be psychos as sailors too. So that didn't make any sense to me. And I'm not sure what it would have actually done for the environment. No?
Did they actually talk about that, or was that in that long ass?
No, that's what she said. The girl from Seattle.
Margaret, yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. She said she wanted to get rid of the Marine Corps because, and I understand these ships take fossil fuels to get around. Well, some of them do. Some of them are nuclear, but by just eliminating some of the Marines and absorbing the rest into the Navy, you're not you're not really cutting the budget, let alone fixing the environment.
You're just changing the deck chairs around.
Right.
So, like, I liked Margaret, actually. She had a lot of good things to say, to be sure. But it was tough. The Green Party one was a little bit tougher because we had, 3 responses, and that's because that's kind of how they do things, I think. I mean, it's like a class, everybody gets a chance to speak or something.
The consensus thing.
Yeah, the consensus thing. Yeah, one thing about Zizek that I love, he says, all of these people that want to do this consensus shit, he says, that would be my worst nightmare. He said, I'd have to kill myself. I don't want that. I want to be alienated from it, and I want to go sit in my room and read books and write shit. I will be perfectly happy letting all that stuff go on in the background for the people that really want to do it. And I had the same problem in the old reading group, that we did back in the day. I mean, for a while it was like you pass the baton around and then it's your turn to talk. And when you read something, there are rights and there are wrongs. Like if and I'm not saying that Joe could say some things. He was another one of the Green Party guys every now and again, but really not to totally dig on you, but Craig had some good input in certain moments. Margaret had, she was clearly the dominant voice. Like she's comfortable in that space. One thing that Craig did that really impressed me was when we brought up the stuff about renewables, and he immediately went. He said, "I listened to what you guys said, and all of your points are essentially correct. We need to deal with creating something more sustainable on at scale." Most of the people that I talk to that identify in that ideological genre, they have an emotional investment, or maybe they work for some sun solar company, or
Well, yeah, but then to almost completely contradict what Craig said, Margaret jumped in and said, "Yeah, but we've got to do something."
That's
And I get it. I agree. We do have to do something,
but not for cathartic reasons. Not
right.
To make us feel like we're doing something, but not solving any problems at the same time. Yeah,
and definitely not to put somebody in office.
Yeah, to make it, to make it look like we're doing something.
Right.
Because we have to fucking find a moment where, and the energy question's paramount. Like if we don't find a way to bring our energy consumption and into balance with, all of the things that we're doing to, exponentially continue to consume energy from year to year to year, and the things that it's like we're digging our own grave, and we're like not throwing it out on the side. We're just literally down there taking the dirt and throwing it on top of ourselves.
Yeah.
Woo! Might as well just get it all done at the same time, But Craig, to his credit, he was he literally cut us off, and he's like, "I agree, but I mean and Margaret is a politician. Craig, I don't see him as much of a. I honestly think that dude, he is solution oriented. I'm not saying that Margaret isn't, but sometimes you gotta not get used to talking and see where the rubber meets the road. And I love you, Margaret. You're awesome. You had a lot of wonderful things to say, but this is something that we really we're not 2 minutes to midnight. It reminds me of the scene from the newsroom, So what would be a good way of dealing with this? Well, having started 20 years ago. So basically we can't do shit. That's correct. Well, have a good weekend, everybody. We're all fucking dead. That's a wonderful scene.
Yeah. And I don't know how much time we have left. All I know is that based on everything that I read in the Green New Deal and everything that I read for our green energy episodes, they're kind of at odds with each other. Especially, like, I couldn't even get Margaret to admit that even if we go to electricity, they're going to have to fucking mine copper. Which maybe not. Maybe there's some other conductive metal that we can get at an inexpensive rate to put in houses and buildings for everybody globally. I don't know. But and I'm not just here to, thrash on Margaret. I was just pointing out the fact that that is the one issue that I had with the Green Party more than any other issue, is that they are supposed to be the environmental party, and the Green New Deal is not environmental. And Margaret didn't write the Green New Deal. So,
well, and the Green New Deal wasn't just about environmental stuff as it was written anyway. I mean, there were all kinds of other.
Yeah, but it was all about job creation through.
It was there's more in it than just stuff that relates to the environment. I mean, there's woke stuff in there. There's a lot of identity politics stuff in there, and that's just.
I'm just talking about the job creation and the political stuff, not necessarily the woke shit.
Well, the only reason why. So if you're talking about the way that it was written, writ large, and this is what was put in the actual bill when it was trying to be constructed. There are other problems with the way that the bill was constructed as well, and the point about creating answers that only serve to provide catharsis. Like, catharsis is like one of the worst ways to approach any subject, because you're making yourself feel good thinking that you did something when you really did nothing. That couldn't be any more counterproductive if you wanted it to be. Because if we, that's fantasy fucking land, So I don't know. I mean, they're interesting. I mean, they're not going to be the ones anyway. So I don't know who's going to be the ones. Honestly, I think that this independent party thing that could develop will be an interesting thing to watch. So,
I know it's too bad that RFK has such a big name. Otherwise, I think we should try to get him on the show.
Yeah,
but I don't think that'd happen.
No, we'd have to have a few more listeners. He did he did Theo Vaughn the other day, that comedian guy. But he's got 1.2 million views of the, we're not maybe if we could get him on there, we could get 1.2 million downloads. Come on, RFK, help a brother out.
Yeah,
I only talked a little bit of shit about that Source Bright company.
You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. The way we'll scratch yours is by letting 4 people listen to it. The way you'll scratch ours is by getting us 1.2 million listeners. I don't know.
But we have to talk about Israel if you come on. I'm sorry, it's an important thing. So we need to talk about that in relation to Ukraine and some other stuff. So.
Yeah, I'm sure that's good. Maybe one of our 4 listeners will tell them what we just said.
Yeah. It's got to be true. I gotta say, who knows, man? You fart in the wind. If it catches the right breeze, you might catch a whiff. You never know.
So, it isn't our fault. I mean, we really did try to get all of these parties on. But I guess the only thing that I can think of to say now is there are other parties out there. So check them out. I mean, I think we at least mention the websites on most of the episodes.
Yeah, we try to get people to know where they could go and get more information about them. So Come on, communists.
Yeah, and Darren of
Come on,
the
Working People's Party.
right, we need the Working People's Party, we need the Socialist Party, the Communist Party,
DSA,
right.
Socialist Alternative, any of those ones we would take.
I
All of them, we would
really,
support.
even though I don't like them personally anymore, I would like
The
the
fucking
libertarians.
Yeah, I absolutely, because we would need, and this is where, like we said, we don't pound them, but there's been a tendency inside of the libertarian spaces right now to angle towards that God shit, and we want to understand what that's all about. And I, in the midst of all of that, I would like to ask a question to all of the individuals that have an affinity for small government or what they perceive to be small government, and God being an important part of your policy positions. Why are you all dividing yourselves up into, and there's a lot of them, and they're all in like 16 different camps. And I mean, I understand it's ego, somebody, they want to see themselves as the new Patrick Henry or fucking, you know, Ben Franklin or not Alexander Hamilton, he was a Federalist. So James Madison, you know why Alexander Hamilton didn't end up running for president? He was born in the West Indies. I didn't know that. So when he was a baby, he was born in the West Indies, and then he came up to the colonial spaces. So otherwise, he would have almost certainly been a president. So
Is he trafficking sugar or some shit?
as a baby, yeah, I'm sure.
I mean his family.
Yeah, he was sucking on a popsicle and shooting people's pinky toes off.
As a baby, he's like, "Put me in that boat, bitch. I got to take the sugar up there."
I don't know. I don't know that. We'll figure that out for the next episode. Was Alexander Hamilton's family trafficking in sugar in the West Indies?
Yeah, I don't. I know I've said it before, but like the libertarians, the reason I decided I wasn't a libertarian anymore was because when I was doing the interview in 06, I asked them about their environmental policy, and they said, well, we need to sell all the national parks and, anything that the BLM owns, and that's Bureau of Land Management for those of you that don't know, any
No,
wide
it's not. It's Black Lives Matter.
BLM land, national park land, we need to sell all of it. And I was like, well, but a lot of that stuff, not so much with the BLM stuff because, they're putting mines on there and they're doing oil drilling and all of this, but national parks, that's pristine land.
Well, explain why what they thought. So you asked them.
Yeah, I said that, and then I said, so how is that going to fix everything? And they said, well, first of all, it'll give us the money from selling it, and then we have a belief that there's pride in ownership. And so the people are going to take care of the land because now they own it. And I was like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? Have you seen certain people's yards around where you live? There's no fucking pride in ownership.
Stewardship, Brian. Stewardship.
So we ended up parting ways at that point because I just could not say that I was a libertarian anymore.
So on the Hill now, Monday through Thursday, Bree is the left. Yes, this is the way they say it. This is not me saying it. And this guy named Robbie Sauvé, this white blonde-haired, I mean, he looks like the poster boy for the Aryan Nation, but he's fucking funny sometimes. And he is a self-identifying libertarian, and every fucking time he opens up his mouth, deregulation, blah blah this, sell off. I mean, he says the same shit, And I'm like, Robbie, he really is smart sometimes. I'm like, bro, you can't mean what you're saying. Sometimes we have to protect certain things for the sake of posterity, and I mean that all the way. all people to be able to come. I mean, what that sucked if people couldn't go and fucking hang out at Yellowstone or go to Yosemite or go anywhere in the Rocky Mountains or in the Appalachian Trail or fuck,
Pacific Coast Trail or
the Finger Lakes in northern New York, whatever,
all of them. I mean, there's the Pawnee National Grassland, which is shitty. It's flat. It's just grass. It's ponds and stuff. But I mean, that's so important for fucking ducks and birds and fish and whatever. So
when we were flying back from LA, I don't ever sit by the window. But I was sitting by the window, it was light enough out that when we flew over Lake Powell, I could see it like clear. Dude, that is fucking awesome. You don't want anybody fucking that up, dude.
No, I don't. And I don't think that, if we sell it to fucking Shell or BP, that they're gonna be good stewards of the environment.
But they're very good faith actors.
Yeah.
They don't have any other interest tied to anything else other than just taking good care of that land, Brian.
Right. We could sell it. We could sell it to BP, Shell, and Exxon, and then all of these good things would happen. We just know it. I mean, 2 oil spills and a bunch of fucking natives that have been poisoned. You can't go wrong.
2 oil spills. Sorry.
But the Libertarian Party, the Constitution Party, the Alliance Party, all 3 of those guys, those parties, want to basically get rid of any fucking bureau, organization.
Alliance.
I'm pretty sure the Alliance too.
That was Jimbo.
Yeah.
They were very much like the fucking no labels guys, except for they don't have no fucking money,
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I know one of them toward the end.
He was a politician. He was the head of education.
Yeah. I know.
I think they were just.
Well, anyway, the point I was going to make is that all of these groups that want to, like, the libertarians are always saying, get rid of the IRS, get rid of the FBI, the DEA, and all of these different groups. And believe me, I'm not a big fan of the FBI, the DEA, the CIA, any of them. The IRS, I fucking hate the IRS. Taxes are bullshit, especially since they just spend it on whatever the fuck they want. We cannot just completely fucking disassemble the government without catastrophic fucking results, because you're talking about them being ingrained in society for an incredibly long time, for one, but 2, there's just a shitload of jobs. If they did that, the US economy, the global economy, would fucking take a nosedive at an unprecedented rate. So for those people that are following any of these parties and they think, you know what, that's a really good idea, I think I'm going to vote for these people because I think they can get it done. 1, they can't get it done. They're making promises that they can't fucking fulfill. And 2, even if they could get it done, unless you want anarchy, which I might be okay with also, then it's a bad idea. No? Yeah?
Well, I mean, if you're voting for one of those parties in the first place, it's unlikely that they're gonna. I mean, your vote is sort of a. I'm not Crystal or Kyle. Fuck those fucking motherfuckers. Sorry, but you are voting for somebody who's not going to be able to enact the policy plan that they want to run on, or that they're running on, rather.
Right. But
so nothing's going to get done through what it is that you're voting for those people. And when I did engage them, generally it would be on questions of practicality with regards to, I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about basically pulling all of our economy, making it like a protectionist, like pre-World War II protectionist position. And I'm like, how do you fucking do that? We are integrated and embedded in all these other spaces now. I don't understand how you. And to that person's credit, it was the Constitution Party guy. He says, I don't know. He says,
Yeah.
You're right. He says, I don't know.
Because he's the one that said he was a pragmatist and a dreamer.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was very honest.
Yeah.
I like that. That was Jack. Jack what?
Turhan?
Yeah.
Turhan?
Tarhu. That's like a city in Indiana.
So, and obviously, the minute that they get elected, these things aren't going to happen. But if they, I don't know. I'm just telling you to, try to do a little bit of research before you vote on something, someone.
That's so in the space where, like, Crystal and Kyle make the arguments that they make. Once you set these other things in motion, then different forms of possibilities open up. Like, we don't really know what's going to come of, like, if all of those conservative, God-fearing, unique individuals coalesced, that would be a different kind of bloc. That would be a bloc kind of like the Freedom Party or the Freedom, the Republicans. So
the American Patriot.
Yeah, so Lonnie. That they're not Lonnie. No, like literally inside of the Freedom Caucus.
Oh,
in Congress, like fucking Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan kind of people. Buck, he's a Colorado representative and he's part of the Freedom Caucus. But if you set those dialogues in motion publicly, not privately, when people reach out to you and ask you to give interviews and talk about your platform, if you start to do these things publicly, then that becomes part of a different set of possibilities. So I'm just, well, I was poo-pooing you in the sense that the policy stuff's not going to get enacted. Our goal at this point in the process of trying to upset the structure of the existing system that needs to be changed isn't about constructive policy positions. It's about it's about creating chaos,
Well, I'm all for upsetting the apple cart. All I'm saying is that, make sure that that's the right person before you do it, because some weird shit, whatever, could happen, won't happen, but just be careful with what you're buying into before you actually take it home.
What did Littlefinger say? Chaos is a ladder.
I don't remember him saying that.
Oh, he definitely said
no, it. I believe you. I just can't remember when he said it.
He and Varys were in the throne room of where the sword thing is at. Yeah. And they're talking about things. And
the Iron Throne before Joffrey died, right?
Before Joffrey died,
yeah.
Yeah. And there's this weird moment, like in season 7, where before he gets his throat cut by Arya, and he says they're all sitting there talking, and Bran, or the Three-Eyed Raven, turns to him and says, "Chaos is a ladder," and he's like, "We was only me and Varys that were there. How would you fucking know I said that?" But my point isn't that chaos is a ladder and it's not like Mao, where it's like when there's disorder under heaven, everything's good. It's just to say that, like, when we get our minds out of the space that we're both trying to like pry minds out of right now, as they dialogue with one another, interact with one another, other possibilities can come to the forefront. And hopefully it's not just something, electoral politics is always going to be limited based on because of all these other gigantic corporate interests in relation to it. But you have to, like Zizek said, you have to do everything. You have to do all things at all time, not just fucking walk and chew gum. You got to walk, chew gum, kick, hop on the pogo stick, smack your head on the side, while you're spinning around in a circle doing flips. Everything all at the same time.
That's tough. I can't do any of that shit.
But socially,
especially the pogo stick.
Yeah, I haven't tried to be on a pogo stick since I'm sure I was like 11 or 12. So.
I was gonna say I think I was 10.
Like when's the last time you even saw a fucking pogo stick?
I don't think they exist anymore.
Yeah, I think Jeannie'd be like.
No, I saw one on Tremors 2.
That was the 90s.
No, but I just watched that not too long ago. So I saw
it on saw it recently. Right. Referring to something that happened.
Yes.
30 plus years ago. Good talk.
Right, you got it.
Motherfucker.
Okay, so last thoughts to wrap up?
No, I just like again, I'm not poo-pooing anything. We just look at your options, figure it out. Don't allow a person to talk you into not finding a party that actually reflects your true beliefs, thoughts, and desires. Don't because of some lesser of two evil bullshit. Like if the world's going to change, we have to take some risks, and that's you got to step out.
And there are way more than two evils. I mean, we just did interviews with 8 of them. So
that was not very nice thing to say. You should have said 2 evils just did an interview with 8 other evils. At least put us in the evil category too. Satan. Devil worshiper.
I would like to dedicate this show to our Dark Lord Satan. Thank you for giving me the will to pick up this microphone.
You are a total fucking douchebag.
All right.
So, 720-334, roll.
Or 7655. And shortbusdebateclub@yahoo.com.
All right. We'll be catching you on the flip side.
Hasta luego.